financial literacy, and the human condition. Welcome to Financial Fitness with the Money Doctor, Dr. Francis Rayam.
Welcome to Financial Fitness. I'm Jess Tyler, along with the Money Doctor, Dr. Francis Rayam. Good morning.
Good morning, Jess. How are you?
I am good. What are we talking about today?
Have you ever heard the term synthetic ID?
No, but I'm assuming it's a fake ID.
Sort of. I think we're not really used to hearing it yet, but a synthetic ID is the kind of ID that scammers create, fraudsters create out of bits and pieces of information. So you and I have talked about in general how to keep your credit safe and how to protect your identity a bit, but it's getting tougher and tougher and tougher the more digitally we move our money around, right? So for instance, they might get somebody's social security number, somebody else's name, a third person's address. Maybe they make up some stuff in the middle, right? And they create an ID that is called a synthetic ID.
Okay.
And with that ID, they can open up accounts.
All right. How do you do that though without, you would need to get like a license or like a passport originally, right?
Yeah. Have you ever seen the movies? In the movies where they get, false papers, and then as soon as they get one piece, as soon as they get one piece, they can get others, right? Think about this. What do you have to do to get your license? You have to bring some sort of proof of ID, but before you have a license, what do you provide?
Birth certificate.
Yeah. Things that unfortunately, can be recreated by fraudsters fairly easily. So the biggest target for this are young people, like babies or really, toddlers, because they get a clean social security number. A fraudster will get a clean social security number, and they might have 15, 18, 20 years to use their credit before you discover there's a problem, right? Because your kid's not applying for loans.
Yeah, so you're not thinking to go check your kids' social security numbers.
Exactly. Or their credit reports for that matter. They don't have any credit, or so you think. But it can happen that these things happen. Now, I'm not making something out of nothing here. Locally, we've had a pretty good scare lately. One of the local banks has a big banner on their, maybe more than one, has a big banner on their website that says, beware of people skimming cards. What that means is they go by your pocket, your credit card is in your wallet or your debit card is in your wallet. They go by you close enough with a reader and they grab that information, right?
That's scary. How do you prevent that?
So one way to prevent it might be an RFID wallet, one that protects it from radio frequencies. I used to hear that people would wrap them in aluminum foil. That might work. I don't know. Some techie will call it and tell me whether that's crazy or not. But in the end, I think the people that are perpetrating these frauds are getting more and more clever. And while we are becoming more and more digitally savvy, we are always like behind the eight ball trying to make up for it. We come up with this great tool. Hey, here's going to be a great way that you can access all your accounts from home. And the next thing you know, we're saying, but somebody else has figured that out. And now we have to tell you a great way to protect that, right? We're always putting in checks and balances. You see the spam software that you put on your computer, not just virus software, but adware, right? Because you get these ads like, buy this product, and it's popping up on your computer and you don't know why. Well, sometimes those ads are, your computer has been infected by a virus. Click this link. Now you click that link and all the information in your computer may be accessible to whoever is perpetrating that fraud. Now, it may also be some kid, who loved to, or even an adult who just wanted to hack people for fun and drive you crazy. But in the last several months, I've had to help several people. I've been happy to help them, but wish there was a better thing to help them with. Several people who really were targeted by these things. One person was told at the bank that they have to clean their computer. They spent a lot of money going to somebody and having them clean the computer. They closed all their accounts down. They reopened accounts, blah, blah, all of this stuff, only to find out probably that they actually weren't scammed. They were maybe almost scammed, and they were scared, and they lost a lot of sleep. And it's no surprise to any of us that it was somebody who was a bit elderly, right? who was very worried about this and not as tech savvy as maybe, not that all elderly people aren't tech savvy. Hey, I just turned 60 and I'm pretty tech savvy, right?
You're not an elderly person, Frances.
Hey, if I'm lucky, I'll get there, you know? But truly, I mean, I know a lot of elderly people who are really great at tech. So I
Yeah.
don't mean to say that, but I think that there are a lot of people who are not good with tech, whether they're elderly or not. And those people fall prey to things like this when, you know, something pops up on your computer and it's very scary. Now, also, recently, I had somebody who did get their card skimmed locally, right in my own town. I know it.
Mhm.
And they went to the bank, and the people had been able to empty his checking account.
Oh,
Now,
how quickly? That's
quickly.
yeah.
He only had about $3,500 in there, but to him, that was a lot of money. And to
Mhm.
many of us, it would be a lot of money, right? And somebody skimmed his card. It was his debit card. They set up a bunch of bill pays and other things where they could get the money out, transferred to other accounts. They emptied his account. He discovered it. Of course, the bank called him or he went to the bank, one of the two, and
Mhm.
gee, there was no money in the account. And what the bank told him to do as a solution, now I have to give my hats off to this local bank who replaced his money, put all of his
Oh,
money back in
good.
the account.
Yeah.
So that was really nice. You know, a small local bank said, yep, we know it wasn't you. Here's your money back. But
Yeah.
they also said, we have to close the account, reopen a new account. And this was a person who put all their money in their checking account and then just paid their bills out of it. And the bank told him, open up a savings account as well, put most of the money in the savings account and funnel what you need into the checking account. And
Mhm.
in that way, if somebody accessed one of your accounts, they maybe couldn't get to both of them. I'm not sure
Mhm.
that was a real solution, but it was some advice and it helped him to feel more comfortable. I did tell him to lock down his credit reports as we always talk about, um, you know, to make sure that there's a freeze on your credit reports so that if somebody does start to take out loans or try to take out loans in your name, they can't get to your credit to get the loans approved. So
Mhm.
let's say that somebody builds a synthetic ID like we were talking about, right? So they build a synthetic ID and it's got your social security number on it. Well, they go to get a loan. The first thing they're going to do is try to pull credit based on that social. If your
Mhm.
credit reports have a freeze on them, they're not getting very far. They
Right.
can't get the loans. So I think that's really a valuable tool that I cannot stress enough. Other than to say I wouldn't live a day of my life without a freeze on all three of my credit reports. And
Little sidebar, how sad is it though? Like the majority of us are good people going about our day, going about our business, and now we have to worry about going out to buy a special wallet or
yeah.
wrapping our stuff in aluminum foil because this could happen to anyone. I hate that.
Yeah, I hate it too. I get very frustrated with exactly what you're talking about. Somebody who is just going along trying to live their life, minding their own business, and
Hmm.
suddenly their hours, their time, their sleep gets hijacked by
Yeah.
something like this when you would least expect it, of course. And at first you don't, you think, oh, this can't be. There must be some mistake. I'll call the
Hmm.
bank, right? Or I'll call the credit card company. And then it starts to settle that, somebody got your information. Now that's like somebody breaking into your house. Most people report that they feel quite violated by that. And since you
Hmm.
don't know who it was and you can't see who it wasn't like, hey, my brother had a problem with me and he came to my house and told me off and I know how to deal with that. This is somebody you don't know. You don't know how they got in. You don't know whether
Hmm.
people often think they got in through the banking system, but that's rare. Banking systems are pretty secure. It's rare, but it happens. We'll
Hmm.
talk about SoFi a little bit. SoFi just agreed to pay $1.1 million in FINRA charges. FINRA is the independent organization that writes and enforces the rules for brokers and broker dealers. So for securities things. And they alleged that their firm's cash management accounts, the brokerage
Hmm.
accounts, were vulnerable to fraud. And this is because they used a third party
Hmm.
and millions of dollars. And we can go into a little bit more detail about this in the second half, but millions of dollars, if I didn't say
Hmm.
that once already, were moved into fraudulent accounts,
Oh.
accounts that were set up by the kinds of things we're talking about. Now, I think it was $8.6 million were moved before anybody noticed it. And 2.5 million of those dollars have already been gone. They're out of the account somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So it gets caught somewhere and they stop. Now, those accounts may have been set up through the use of some sort of synthetic ID or fictitious identities. And they set up about 800 of these accounts before anybody caught anybody. Well, I don't even know if anybody has caught any of the perpetrators yet. But here's SoFi paying 1.1 million, and they just had to pay 700,000 for another offense, which was a separate FINRA offense, which was about allegedly poor oversight on their fully paid security lending accounts.
So
Now, this
these
is
companies are
SoFi.
so some of these bigger companies are being held accountable then if they're not really vetting their third-party vendor, and then the customer kind of gets the short end of that stick.
Well, I wish I knew more details about the SoFi case, because, you know, the first thing that irritated me about SoFi when I saw all their commercials on about, you can get your student loans taken care of with SoFi, was that they were just refinancing them, right? They weren't really getting you out of that debt. And that they used SoFi like socially, financially, accountable or whatever. And, I know they have this pattern of doing that, but people complain that they get lots of ads from SoFi trying to sell them other things. I don't see how this is socially great for people, right? But it really, when you said, are they being held accountable? I wish I knew more about the details of this. I think it's newer. I mean, this happened in 2018 and 2019, but it's just coming to light now. They've just agreed to pay 1.1 million. But think about that for a minute. 8.6 million dollars were transferred out of 800 accounts. And SoFi has agreed to pay 1.1 million. Where's the rest of that money coming from?
Yeah. So is that just passed on to the customers if they just lost their money?
I mean, I'm hoping that there's insurance on that, but I don't know. I haven't been able to dig up those details. I don't know. I doubt that these were FDIC insured accounts. These are brokerage accounts.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know if they have insurance for that. But even if we just take how much money was transferred out of those accounts was 2.5 million. This is less than half of that.
Yeah, that's a pretty light fine then when you look at how much is gone.
Yeah. So are they accountable? I don't know. I mean, they're big. How accountable are they? $700,000 in fines for poorly overseeing some fully, funded security lending accounts. Is that accountable? I don't know. They, one would like to believe that, but I do want to talk in the second half about this too, because really, we should talk about the kinds of things that happen, like how they got the money out of these accounts and how nobody noticed this. Why didn't these accounts get triggered? Why, at your local bank, most of the time, right? And somebody, and here's a plug for local banks, right? Even though I use distance banks and local banks. When somebody is making a transaction, it may even be you. I don't know about you, but I get a call from the bank, or I get a letter or something that says, are you trying to do this? Or they lock down your card.
It happens almost every time when you're on vacation. It happens to me all the time on vacation.
It does. Do you have a story about that where
I just, last time we went to Florida, I was in there, I was in the shoe store buying some shoes, and then all of a sudden it blocked me, so the transaction wouldn't go through. And then I got like a message on my phone, and I'm thinking, oh, they know I'm shoe shopping. How is this happening? But it was just because the purchase was from Florida and not from Massachusetts, so they were making sure it was really me, which I appreciate, actually.
Absolutely. But do you know how to prevent that?
Probably call them ahead of time and tell them you're going on vacation.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. However, I did that once, and then I went to Canada and I got there very late. I was very tired. I was just trying to check into the hotel, and guess what? My card wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Couldn't work. And we tried to get them on the phone. It was like an hour. And finally the hotel took pity on me and they said, you seem like an honest person. We're just going to give you a room and straighten this out in the morning. And they really did. They really did. Hats off to Guelph, Canada, who did that for me. So yeah.
All right. Well, we've got more in the second half, but I do want to get your phone number.
Sure. It's 413-773-3333.
And you can visit hugyourmoney.com. We'll be back with part 2, Financial Fitness with the Money Doctor, Dr. Francis Ram on WHMP.
There's more to life than just a balanced portfolio. To achieve real balance, self-care should include financial wellness. Journey there with your Hug Financial Coach. Hug your money. So unique, it's patented.
Welcome back to Financial Fitness. I'm Jess Tyler, along with the Money Doctor, Dr. Francis Ram. Hi.
Hi. So while we were off the air, you mentioned that you got an email, some sort of an email that has to do with what we're talking about?
Yeah, it's so interesting that this happens because I didn't know what the topic was ahead of time. And I just saw this morning and I'm like, oh, what is this? As a lot of people do, I've gone to Credit Karma before, so now I get notifications all the time from them. And it said, just a reminder, Jessica, it looks like your personal data may have been compromised, not at Credit Karma, but in at least one data breach affecting another company. So of course I see that and I'm like, oh no, like where do you even go from there?
But does it tell you what to do, or does it just say, warning, it may have been breached?
Well, I'll click on it while we're talking right now. It says, click
Okay.
here to see what the breach was.
Okay. So while you're looking that up, I will say that if it's specific and it says, so in order to rectify the situation, you must, go here and click these things, and we're going to give you free identity theft protection, then it's probably legit. But still, I would go directly to the source. I wouldn't click any links. I mean,
Okay, so it says after I've clicked 3 links, but okay. So the data breach says 2021 AT&T subscriber data reported March of 2024. So yeah, I do remember that article about the big AT&T breach.
Yes.
So
yeah, so that's legit, I think. Yeah.
yeah.
So what are you going to do about it?
Freeze my credit report.
Yes, you are. You're going to freeze your credit reports. That's right. I think I should give out that number. I think it's 800-685-1111. I'm going by memory here. If it's not 800, it's 8888. No, it's 888, folks. So I think it's 800-685-1111. That would be Equifax. You can push some buttons on your phone and put a freeze on your credit report. And you could, they typically will tell Experian and TransUnion. But if they're not doing that any longer, you'll hear it in the recording. So just follow the prompts. It will ask you, do you want to put a fraud alert on or a freeze? I would recommend a freeze if you're trying to keep your credit safe like that. It doesn't cost you anything to do. You can pull your credit reports at annualcreditreport.com for free and look at all 3 of them and make sure they're okay.
The only question that I had on that, and I know we talked about that before about, putting the freeze on there, while it does keep you safe, thinking about like all the people, and myself included, that have auto pays and everything. So then if you have the freeze on the credit card and then that auto pay happens to go, like you don't necessarily always know the exact time.
You're not freezing your credit card, you're freezing your credit report.
Okay, explain the
difference. It won't affect your auto pays at all.
Okay.
Your auto pays are set up through either the company that's drafting the money from your account or through your bank as an online bill pay, right? So that's you're generating that. That has nothing to do with pulling your credit. The freeze on your credit reports is so that nobody can get credit in your name. Now, if you're where it might seem fuzzy is where it might seem connected to a credit card is, let's say you go to a big box store and they say, if you want our loyalty credit card right now, you can get a 20% discount. And you say, okay, I'll apply. You won't get it instantly unless you unlock your credit report, because they can't get to your credit report.
Okay, got it. So good or bad, no one can report anything.
Nobody can get credit in your name. The credit cards, the lenders are still able to report. The information still goes in, but nobody can pull it out. in order to get a loan in your name. So it's good that you asked that, because I just always rip that off, like put a freeze on your credit report, and I don't really think about the details, but that's what it is. It just stops people from obtaining debt in your name because they can't get your credit report.
I think I was just getting confused with credit report and credit card. So you're putting a freeze on the report, not the card itself. So so if somebody stole your credit card, they then could still use it.
That's another story. If you're missing your credit card, then you absolutely want to call the credit card company, lock that card down, get a new card, new number. And here's a tip. because I've had to do it. I use credit cards, but I just don't pay any interest on them, right? I rack up points and then I exchange them for cash and I make the credit card companies pay me, which is always kind of fun. So, and word to the wise, don't do this unless you can absolutely afford to pay your card in cash every month without problems. But once you get to that point, you can use this to your advantage. So, but sometimes you have a lot of auto pays going against that card, and it's a real pain in the patoot, if you will, to have to redo those. So what I have suggested to people is take an old statement that shows the charges that were set up as auto pay, or ask the company when you're getting a new card, could you please send me the records of who I have auto drafting so that I can set these up again. Most credit card companies will tell you those auto drafts will probably go through okay, but they don't always. So you really want to pay attention to that for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I know that I've found before too, like you're always hesitant to cancel it right away because you're thinking, maybe I'm just being absent-minded and I'll find it at the end of the day. But so much damage could be done in that amount of time.
And it's so easy to resist it if you use it for a lot of things, or if you're like me and you're a numbers person. I know my credit card number by heart, right? I know everything about it by heart. If I lost the card, I might not even notice it right away because I hardly ever pull the card out to use it, right? Everything's Apple Pay or your mind, or it's you've saved the number on the internet somewhere. But that's just the point, is the more digitally exposed we are, the more things like this SoFi problem can happen. And what happened with them is, okay, so they hired a third-party company. Third-party company was supposed to decide if when you applied for this account, you were a real person, it was legit, you should be given the account, etc. For whatever reason, the third-party company had some tools in place where they would sort of assign a score, if you will, right, to your, not a credit score, but they would say, okay, Jess, we've got your information. You reach this score. Okay, you fit in the box. Your account will now be, and this was supposed to be used in combination with some other tools that SoFi had. But if you cleared that hurdle, your account was automatically approved.
Okay.
If you didn't clear that hurdle, it was supposed to trigger a manual review of your account. Okay.
And what did it trigger instead?
Well, it was supposed to trigger a manual review of your application. Unfortunately, even when that was supposed to happen, apparently it didn't always happen. And so accounts were set up with false social security numbers, wrong telephone numbers, residential addresses, even some accounts that provided the same address as an account that was already open.
Ew.
But somehow it didn't get a red flag, to the tune of 800 accounts. Now, out of those 800 accounts, so let me see if I can paint this picture. Somebody creates a false account through a synthetic ID or other means, but they apply to SoFi for this account. And this could, I'm not picking on SoFi, this could be any company. It just happens that SoFi just got, just agreed to pay this fine. So they get an account, they open it up. Now they can use that account to transfer funds from someplace else into that account, right? But there's no real person behind it. So somebody's behind the curtains pulling the strings, right? So they transfer funds from another account. Maybe it's another one of your accounts with your same social security number, and they've used it to set this up. You know how you can link your accounts together? Okay.
Yeah.
So now they transfer money from one of your other accounts or from somebody's account, could be somebody else's account, as long as they could transfer in, they don't care where it comes from.
Right.
And they transfer money from that account into the SoFi account that the real person doesn't own. But then they have the ability to transfer out of that false SoFi account somewhere else. Might be the Cayman Islands, might be St. Kitts, might be Sweden, might be Turner's Falls. You don't know, right?
And that's where the 8.6 million went?
That's where the 8.6 million went into these 800 accounts. Somewhere somebody stopped it, but only after 2.5 million had transferred out, had been withdrawn into other accounts. So 2.5 million is gone somewhere. We don't know where.
I wonder if they had, they didn't have any people like overlooking it. It was just like all manual, like automatic determine the number, automatic, letter that goes out. And then they have like one supervisor to go through, hundreds of these. I wonder if it's something like that where they have less people and more machines.
That's an interesting question because we come from a time, we all remember a time, most of us remember a time where things were done in person. In fact, things are still often done in person. You want a
Mhm.
mortgage? Sometimes people are doing it through GMAC or someplace online, right? But most often people show up at a local bank and say, I need a mortgage. And a
Right.
mortgage lender sits across the table from you, verifies your identity. Heck, I have to verify identities in my business all the time. Somebody new comes to me, anti-money laundering, right, is a problem. I have to take anti-money laundering courses all the time to be able to keep my license fresh to sell products. And what I have to do is to answer all those questions correctly. An anti-money
Mhm.
laundering course teaches you things like, okay, I'll give you some examples. Somebody comes into your office and they want to buy a big life insurance policy and they just want to pay for it in cash.
Mhm.
Is that a problem? Yeah, it's a problem. Now, you might get to a point eventually after asking enough questions that you could document enough stuff to do this, but I would never do that. I would never take cash for a life insurance policy because what's happening is they're probably trying to wash money from someplace. If not,
Mhm.
they can deposit it into their account and write a check against it, right? So
Mhm.
there's a lot of this stuff where anti-money laundering is that people try to place the money into an account. They'll try to layer it, many different accounts. Local politicians, big politicians get accused of doing this all the time. They have so many corporations set up, so many bank accounts, so many things in their tax returns that you can't sort out where the money ever came from, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
That's a worry for money laundering. And when we're talking about, would it have been better if somebody in person looked at these accounts? Perhaps to some extent, it would be better that somebody might have seen, for instance, a duplicate account being opened with the same social security number, and a human might have said, hey, does this look right to you? Maybe we transposed a number. We better check into this.
Yeah.
Uh, a human might have said, wait a minute, what do you mean you want to open an account with us, but your address is in, you know, I don't know, Vietnam. Okay, maybe they would have said, I think we want to check into this further. Let's verify that this is a real person, because that's what
Right.
this all comes down to. If they couldn't verify that it was a real person, for instance,
Mhm.
let's suppose this uh, third party company thing really worked and everything got red flagged that should have. Okay,
Mhm.
that would have been easy enough to say. Send us a copy of your license. Let's get into a Zoom. I want to see you hold up your license next to your face. Is this really you? Yeah. Okay. If not, they went running, right? That's what
Mhm.
people do. If you can prove it's you, it's no problem. Like, yeah, here's my license. Thanks for calling me. I love that you kept me safe. No problem. But
Yeah.
if you're the shyster, not so much.
Yeah, they probably target a bunch of different corporations and some ask questions and some just don't. So they get
Yeah.
where they get it.
Well, I think you're right. I think if a human had been overseeing all of this, there might have been some instances, but
Mhm.
once a company or once a criminal knows, I'm calling them fraudsters. Let's just cut to the chase and call them criminals, right? Once a criminal
Yeah.
knows that they can break your system, that they can
Mhm.
manipulate the numbers so it doesn't red flag that application. All they have to do is this, and this, and their app gets through. Once they get one through, they're going to go. 800
Yeah.
apps before they got stopped. And I
Mhm.
still don't know who has done this. I just know that SoFi has said, we'll pay 1 million because it's on us. We had a third party organization. Even with our tools, it didn't work right. Let's just settle this so we can keep doing business. And they pay FINRA 1.1 mil. Yeah.
Wow. All right. Well, we are out of time, but I want to get your phone number.
413-773-3333.
And you can go to hugyourmoney.com. Also, as we did last week, we had a listener question edition. So if you have a question, send it in to jtyler@whmt.com or to hugyourmoney.com. And if we use your question on the air, we're going to get a copy of that book right behind you.
Retire debt or retire well.
All right. Thank you so much. We'll be back again next Saturday right here with Financial Fitness with the Money Doctor, Dr. Francis Ram on WHMP.
What would you do with more retirement income? Reliable increased income can be yours without unretiring. Ask your Hug financial coach about guaranteed income today. Hug your money. So unique, it's patented.